Hello and welcome to Queers and Soaps. I'm Eric, joined once again by
Tim, hey, how you doing?
bringing you some more exclusive footage for our Patreon, Desperate Housewives season 1, episodes 10 to 12. Tommy will roll the credits and we'll chat. So, episode 10 is called Come Back to Me. Um, Sharon Lawrence returns as Maisie, and you can take it away. She's part of
Okay,
Rex.
so they talk about Maisie and everything she does. She starts off, they talk about her afternoons. First, they talk about her morning. In their morning, she does her errands. Every day, she does her kids' homeworks. But her afternoons are spent in a very special way with men that she helps. Basically, she's an escort. She's a lady of the night.
A lady of the
And
day.
they show her house and everything. She looks like a perfect housewife, kind of like Brie. But a doorbell rings they show all the clients, and the doorbell rings, and who comes to the door? But it's someone's hubby who turned her back on her when she was in a time of need. Basically, she ran out of money, and the person just turned the other way. She didn't really say anything. And who comes to the door but Rex? And
Hmm
they talk about how every cast has its villains, like every morality play has its villains. And I think that leads into. So I guess I continue with her storyline, right?
hmm
Uh-huh. All right. So if I go on to Maisie, I don't know where to go with
Maisie and
this.
Rex have an afternoon together.
I know, right? um.
Well, I think
Okay.
they just show that in the beginning, and then Bree and Rex meet up a little
Oh,
bit.
yeah. So Bree and Rex meet up. Actually, they don't meet up yet. It goes into a lot of other scenes before then. I'm so sorry.
It's okay. You're just giving me Bree's storyline.
Yeah, right. So if we continue with Bree and Rex's story, um, Bree is playing cards with the girls. Or no, yeah, Bree is playing cards by herself. She's playing solitaire. Rex walks in. It's late at night. She has a glass of wine. She says, "Where are you?" He says, "I could ask the same question. Why did you wait up?" Um, Basically, he says he's here for the kids, not for you. I'm not here for you, Bree. Move on with your life. She says, "Were you with another woman?" Bree says, "Get out." He says basically to meet someone. Move on with your life, Bree. Um,
Mm,
And then she says, "Call your Mr. Woman and tell her to come over." And then she screams out to Danielle and Andrew and says,
Andrew.
Rex is going to fornicate for us. Basically embarrasses Rex.
Yeah.
Then if we go on, the
He's
next
brutal,
scene,
though. Rex is brutal.
he
I
is, but
forgot
she
what an
is
asshole he
too.
is.
He's a little brutal, but he's kind of cruel. He's moved on. She hasn't. She still loves him.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. And I guess he does too in his own weird way.
he does. He does. It'll
But
come up later.
he's like punishing her, I feel like, for being perfect,
Yeah,
almost, it seems.
basically. And that's kind of sad.
Yeah.
So we continue with Bree's storyline. Um, she is with Lynette in one scene, and they talk about a nanny cam.
Yes.
Um, and she says, should she? It is actually with you, with Lynette, I think.
Yeah. Well, they
But
just talk
basically,
about like their issues. Yeah.
yeah, and they talk about a nanny cam. If we continue with Bree's scene, actually, we go back to Maisie Gibbons. Maisie Gibbons is with Rex, and she says, "I'm surprised you moved back home." And he says he's doing it just for the kids. And then she asks him questions like, "Do you want me to wear?" I guess she says, I forget if she says a leather choker or pearls. She puts on pearls. She has this
Yeah.
kind of dominatrix outfit on. She's getting ready. She's playing a part for him. And
Rex
then
like
she ends
it.
up
Wink,
asking
wink.
him whether he wants this kind of shoe or that kind of shoe. And he says stilettos. She chooses them. He lays down on the ground. She walks on his back. And what happens? Rex has a heart attack.
He
So
sure does.
surprise, right? Horrible. And he's a doctor, by the way. So she
Yeah.
calls 911, and they take Rex to the hospital. Bree's arranging flowers in her kitchen, and she gets a call, and it's the hospital saying that your husband's had a heart attack.
Yep.
Goes to the hospital, and it turns out that she's there, and she says, "Hi, I'm here to see my husband Rex." And the woman at the desk looks surprised because someone else basically is there as his wife or brought him in.
Hmm.
She says, "Well, let me talk to the doctor. He'll be right with you." Bree looks down at the list, the signing list, and who signed in Rex? But Maisie Gibbons. Like, what the hell? um,
She really should have used another name if she was trying to keep it a secret, but I guess she didn't think Bree would see it.
yeah, you would think so. I mean, but Maisie did do the right thing. She called 911. She's still
She did.
she's still human with a heart. She may be a hooker, but she's a human with a heart. Kind of like Pretty Woman, you know?
Yeah.
So,
I like that she like talks to Rex and like tries to help him with his problems. Like she's actually trying to help his relationship, really, which
she
she doesn't
does.
have to.
And that's one of the things they say before the heart attack. I remember she said, "You still care for her," to Rex.
Yeah.
And Rex was kind of like, "I guess I do." He wasn't really sure. And she says, like, "You still talk about her. Tell her what you want. Tell her what you need." Because
Yeah.
he's getting this from her. He likes the controlling issue, but he wants things a little more, not just controlling in life. He wants controlling in the bedroom. He wants to
Yeah.
be dominated in the bedroom, which Brie dominates in every other way but the bedroom.
Yeah, pretty
Takes
much.
the feminine
Yeah.
role. And that cheesesteak
Yeah.
in the past episode was a perfect example of that. Couldn't have a mess. It distracted her. She couldn't
Hmm.
get lost in the moment.
Nope.
So Bree's in the hospital room. Rex wakes up from his surgery and he says, "Oh, I guess I survived." She goes, "You did. You did. I guess it was bad. It was." Um, and he says, "It looks like you've been crying." And she says, "I've been thinking about all the things I need and I need to say." And basically, she says that she talked to Maisie. She knows that he loves her, and he does. He confesses his love for her. He still loves her. And then she says, "Good, I needed to hear that." And she goes,
I love this.
she leans into the bed, and you think she's going to say something endearing. And she says, "After this, I'm going to go get the best, most vindictive lawyer I can. I'm going to take the kids, the house, everything from you." And Rex is just laying in bed. He just had open heart surgery, and he's shocked. And Brie, you feel horrible for her because she's been cheated on, but you feel her pain, and it's like
Yeah.
she's there for him, but she's not. She's angry. She wants him to get better so he can watch everything stripped away.
Yep.
And then with Brie's storyline, you go back to
That's pretty much how it
that's
ends. Yeah, that's how it
pretty
ends
much
that
it
episode.
for them. Yeah, I think that's pretty much
So
for them.
back to Gabby. So Carlos, the trial is here. Something about like slave labor, is
Oh
what they're
yeah,
going to
child
trial
labor.
for. And the partner took off. Um, I have Lucille Song, who is the actress who plays Gabby's maid. I didn't realize it was her. She's in a ton of stuff. I think she was in like Freaky Friday with like Lindsay Lohan and stuff. Again, I forgot to look her up. I'll do it again next week because I think she hangs around.
I have to admit, I love her and Gabby's dialogue. The maid and
Yes,
Gabby's dialogue. It's very
me too.
they. It sort of reminds me of like Will and Grace, where it's Rosario and
Rosario and Karen.
Karen, and that
Yeah,
repertoire they have back and forth is great.
yeah. I mean, it's definitely not as funny as them, but it's
Yeah,
funny. So Gabby's car is getting towed, as you know, because they're taking everything possible from her. And she's like acting like she's like, "Oh, that was a bad paint job. Next time it better be better," because like the neighbors are outside
yeah.
looking. Obviously, like neighbors that we never see because we only see the main four. And Edie. Uh, Gabby's lawyer tells her um to try, they can't take what they can't find. I can't hear on my tongue. Sorry. They can't take what they can't find. Um, so if you can hide it, hide it. Do what you gotta do. Gabby gives her good china to Brie, and she's like, "Do you mind if I find like, have a few things?" to store in your garage, and she brings like absolutely everything from her house to fit in the garage. Which cracks me up. And you see like the garage and absolutely everything's in there. She has like a TV, I think, left in her house when they go. So Gabby's house is empty when she goes. She does say that she misses Carlos. She looks very sad and stuff. And the guys come for her stuff, and she's like, "Yeah, we don't believe in clutter because there's like nothing in the house." Gabby visits Carlos in jail. He compliments her. You're such a good wife. I love you. Blah blah blah. They get in trouble for like touching or something, because you can't touch or whatever. He's like, "I'm gonna kiss my wife." Goes to kiss her. He like talks on her lips like that. Um, and he says, "Take the passport to the lawyer and burn the papers in the back of the closet or wherever they're located." She's like, "Carlos, did you know what was going on?" He's like, "Burn the papers." So we know that motherfucker knew what was going on. Um, Gabby looks through the papers and she burns his passport and keeps the papers. She clearly was not thinking when she did this. But anyway, on to Susan.
On to Susan. So we see Julie, Susan, and Mike. They're eating Chinese food. Um, they're talking and everything. They're saying that
And
I think Julie says that her dad and Brandy broke up. That was the last girl you saw Carl with.
right,
And they're talking about how I can't go with dad this weekend. He had to cancel. So Susan goes to cancel with Mike, the romantic weekend they were going to have. And he says, well, why not at my house? And Susan says, I want it to be special. I want my things there, my candles, my perfume. So basically, they leave it at that. They kiss.
and Zach's still around. Zach's
He
still in the
is,
house.
but we find out Julie goes upstairs and Zach is in the room. And he says, I can't hide here forever. And he's afraid that she's going to tell her mom. She says, no, I won't do that. You can trust us. He says, no, I'm going to cause problems. I should go. Um, he says, I'll be out of here soon. And then you go on to, I think where else she comes in.
Doesn't Susan call Mike like to come over and she's like getting ready? Isn't that this one?
I think, yes, Susan. Oh, so Susan is looking out the window and watches Mike's truck pull up.
Hmm.
And she calls him and says that she needs help with her pilot light. Her pilot light's out. So she tells him to come over. She goes upstairs. She's throwing rose petals over the bed. She gets dressed in sexy lingerie. She's looking for candles. She can't find any. She goes into Julie's room and she walks right by Zach, who's hiding behind the door. You don't see him until she goes by the door. She lights the candles. He starts to come over. He starts to worry. So Zach is walking downstairs. Mike is coming in. But Susan hears Zach and says, Mike, is that you? Come on in. I'm ready. Come up here. Mike is actually just approaching the house. Zach has to sneak back upstairs because Mike is coming in the front door. And Susan starts to get worried. So what does she do? She grabs something in her bedroom, and it reminded me of people at work. It was a thigh master. She grabbed a
Yes,
thigh
the
master,
time
and
is.
she's hiding behind the door, and she's thinking it's an intruder. And I'm thinking she's going to hit Zach. She's going to hit Zach. No, she swings, and she whacks Mike in the face. And it's typical, like, Susan antics, you know? You feel
Yeah.
so bad for Mike. She goes to embrace him and everything. He said, what are you doing? You called me over. She said, I thought you were an intruder, but you're dressed in lingerie. You told me to come over. She's like, yeah, but I thought someone came in. They kiss, and just then Zach starts to walk by, and Mike notices Zach. And he says, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Please don't be mad. So they go to the next scene.
I couldn't remember how this played out. I was like,
Yeah.
I forgot if like Zach got busted. I didn't remember, but but Zach like came to them and he was just like, "I'm here, sorry," and they're like,
It was awkward because he sort of felt bad for him because his mom, he had that
Yeah,
violent streak. He didn't know why he and his dad had that violent streak. And you feel bad because his mom died. He had a
yeah,
temper with Brie in the past, but you feel bad. You don't know what's wrong with Zach. And he was in the mental psych ward, basically. So you flash
yeah.
forward to the next scene, and it's Julie comes home, and it's Mike Susan, and Zach at the table. He's like, "Oh,
Yep.
Zach, you're back." And
She's
basically,
trying
they
to
they
play it
come
cool.
forward with all this information, and
Yeah.
they don't know what to do. They basically say, well, "You can't stay here." They take Zach back. Mike takes Zach back to Paul, and he basically says to him, like, "You're a good kid." He hands him his card. He said, "Look, if you need me ever, give me a call." And he takes him home to Paul. They knock on the door. Paul opens the door, rushes, and hugs Zach. And he
Yeah.
says, "How did you? Where did you?" And Mike says, "We'll talk later." Basically, like, be with your son.
Yeah.
So Julie's sort of all mad at her mom now because, her mom turned whatever. She was mad at her because the whole thing about Zach, and it was like turning him in, turning him over to the father. The father put him in the psych ward.
Hmm.
And then Julie, I think is this where she throws at her mom about her being a bad mom?
I believe so.
She basically talks
Yeah.
about the divorce with Carl, and she said you're the daughter, I'm the mother, and she goes, well, I've acted like the mother in the past. You sort of fell apart. I had to take care of the house, cook the meals, pay the bills, even make my own doctor's appointments, and I'm the kid, but I took care of you, and I
Yep.
still do. So
Yeah.
there's some tension there. Eventually, they make up like they always do.
I don't know
Then
if
we
they
go
did in this
to,
one. I think it ends it like with that, right? Or
I
was there
think that's
one other
basically
part?
it for those two.
Yeah.
Um,
So
no,
Lynette, is there
yeah,
more?
I think that's it.
All
I
right.
think it's basically, yeah, that's it for their storyline.
So Lynette has the nanny that she poached off the other family, Claire. Um, Lynette is trying to get her kids to eat their veggies, and of course, they can't. Um, they don't like veggies at all. Claire comes to stay with them. Lynette and Bree had talked. She recommends a nanny cam because she's just like, I guess she feels like Claire is almost too perfect. So she's like, I better check and see. I don't know if I trust her 100%, whatever. So Lynette thinks about it. Next thing you know, Lynette does set up the nanny cam. It's in this frog cookie jar on the
I
fridge.
love that frog cookie jar.
And I like that she like tested it out. She like has this bear and she's like choking the bear and like
Yeah.
slapping it in front of the cam. Um, Lynette sees nothing but good things from Claire. Claire is like excellent with the kids, and she's like almost concerned, like, what am I doing? I feel like I probably would have been like, great, I would have been good with that. I mean, look, those kids are not the greatest kids. I'm just
No,
saying,
there's a
but
lot
I
of
get it.
energy.
I get it. Maybe she shouldn't have had her move in. Like maybe she should have been like, why don't you come? Like whatever she needs. I mean, she doesn't need a full-time nanny. I mean, what is she's not working. You know what I mean? Like you really don't need like the nanny would be for like when you go out and do a few things or like stuff like that. But whatever. I guess she needed more money in the storyline. So anyway, um, Lynette gives the Claire the day off to spend time with her boys, and the boys are just not having it. They're like, "Where's Claire? Can you get Claire back?" Like she's trying to read them a story. She's like, "Claire makes funny voices. Like, come on." And so she's just whatever. So Edie goes to Lynette. Edie's kind of a side storyline in this. Trying to find out about Mrs. Huber. She's worried about her and all that. Goes to Lynette. Um, Lynette can't help her. Something about Edie's mama is in jail, I think we find out. Um, which I was confused about. I'm like, I don't remember her mom coming, but I could be wrong.
She talks
But
about
I
how
don't
her
know if I
mom
did
was in
that.
jail, but how she once had a nanny. She said, "Well, I had a nanny." She's like, "Well, actually, she was more like a social worker, but she was really strict.
Yeah.
And actually, I look forward to seeing her more than I did my mother." And
So
she
we
talks
find
about
out
how
a
she
little
was more like a mother to
backstory
her.
for Edie, yeah. Lynette tells Claire to give the boys vegetables, because she wants them to be eaten healthier, and she knows that it's not going to go well for Claire, and it doesn't. So as she watches the nanny cam, I think she kicks back with some popcorn, and she sees like Claire's like, "Here's your vegetables. You got to eat this, whatever." And then they're like throwing the food at her. Um, And that's how the next storyline ends.
I think the only thing we missed or didn't touch on was Edie did a wellness check with the police
Yeah,
on Martha Huber.
yeah, I was gonna go over that. Yeah, so Edie worries about Martha Huber. Yes, she did the check on her. She's like looking into things because she's just missing at this point. Nobody knows she's dead. Um, when Zach and Paul are reunited, Zach says that he remembers stuff from when he was a
Yeah,
kid, but he doesn't know. And Paul basically says, push them back down. They
yeah,
need
he
to
does.
forget, which is not good. And we know that there's some crazy crap that's going to happen because by pushing them down can make you go a little cuckoo.
I think this was a scene where they were eating dinner, right?
Hmm.
So he kept saying, would you like more potatoes? And Zach kept saying no. And Paul kept saying, have some more potatoes. And he's like, I'm okay. And he's saying how he remembers stuff, but I remember somebody. He's saying all this stuff, and I think I heard somebody. And finally, his father offers him more mashed potatoes, which makes me think his father does something to the mashed potatoes.
I like drugs them.
That's what I think. I don't remember
He
because it's been
could.
about 10 years since I saw it, but he just kept pushing mashed potatoes on Zach. And we
Well,
know
they're a
Zach
real
was in a
creepy
mental
family.
yeah, he was in a mental institution, but he was off of his meds. So my thought is he's probably giving him medication in the mashed potatoes. We'll
Right.
see.
So the next episode, episode 11, is called Move On. It starts out with Edie. Edie's upset that the girls don't seem to like her. Mrs. Huber became her friend, even though she was like a dick to her, basically. Didn't really like her life choices. We have a Felicia Tillman comes to town, played by Harriet Sansom Harris, in a ton of different things. Love this woman. She was in the Five Mrs. Buchanans, which was a one-season show that I feel like me and Tommy's boyfriend are the only ones that have seen it.
Two
It's a great
viewers.
show. Check on YouTube, it's probably there. But it's like the creators of like Designing Women and stuff, I believe. Um, and uh, oh yeah, so Felicia comes to town. She's like, she knows her sister's dead. She's like, she's dead. Like I just feel it. Felicia's a piece of work. She doesn't really like her sister at all. I think she might even say she hates her. But but anyway, she's like she wants to find out what happened to her, even though she did hate her. Um, and we see like the missing papers are all around the neighborhood, like whatever. On with that storyline, Martha's car is found. Everyone is searching for her at one point, and later on, well, I'll say the end now because we have to do our main ladies. The dog digs up Mrs. Huber in the end. So all of the stuff we're about to talk about all leads up, all goes into this stuff. Um, and I think you can start. I think Bree and
Great.
Rex are next.
Okay, so we're in the hospital, and Danielle Danielle Andrew. I always forget his name. I want to say Andrea. Andrew and Bray are all talking. Rex is coming home today. She says your father's not welcome back in the home, but she doesn't tell the kids why. Andrew gives her such an attitude, and you kind of see them arguing back and forth,
As
and
always.
basically criticizes her like he always does. There's always tension there. Oil and vinegar, oil and water. They don't
Hmm.
mix at all. Oil and water. Um,
Nope.
Bree finally caves in, and she says, "Fine, I'll
Well,
take care of him."
I think he blames his mom for ruining their marriage, and
I think
he's mad
so.
about it. I think that's why he blames her so much.
Um, so Danielle actually turns to Andrew at the end of all this and says, "We're not like other families, are we?" And he says, "We are not." And they're not.
Mm-mm.
They're unlike any other family because again, it's everything is picture perfect and there's no emotions and Bree just pushes it down. Again, it's that pushing down of emotions, and
Yeah.
it's going to manifest itself in some other way, which it does for all of us when we do that. So we go to Bree and Rex again. He's at home. He thanks her. Um, she says, "I've only brought you home for the kids. I didn't bring you home for you. I don't care for
And
you,
he's
baby."
recuperating from the heart surgery, so
He's
he
recovering.
need, yeah.
So the doctors say that it's going to be approximately like 4 weeks. So she imagines her life's going to be hell. and she says, "My love is empty now, um, because of everything you did." He says, "You still care for me," and she goes, "No, I don't." And he brings her, or she brings him breakfast on a tray. So on the tray is nice china, is
Hmm.
flowers from her garden in a vase, and to me it looks like Waterford. I recognize it, but in her
Probably.
fanciest stuff. And he says, "Look at this exquisite breakfast you made. Look at the flowers. Look at the china. You still care?" And she goes, "No, Rex, I'm just anal retentive." And she is. But again, I think that's how she shows her love and affection.
Yeah, I think it would maybe drive her crazy if she didn't do everything perfect, really.
Yeah, I think it
So she
does.
has to still, yeah,
And that's where you want to see her let it go. You want to see her let go of that anal retentive bit that she has.
probably in the
So
season finale.
I know, right? So later on we go to I think she goes to pick up medicine. She picks up medicine from the pharmacy for um for Rex, and she sees George. It's
Mm.
her first time seeing George. Now, George, do you remember his name, the actor's name?
Roger Bart.
So he's been in a ton of stuff, but I remember seeing him with you on Broadway in Young
Hmm.
Frankenstein. Loved him. And
Hmm.
we also saw him with Megan Mullally. Great show. Amazing
He's
show.
a yes, he's a big Broadway guy. I think he's still in Broadway, actually. He's
Yeah.
still on Broadway, sorry,
Maybe
in
one
Broadway.
time we'll see him in another show.
I'm sure.
But
I think
basically,
actually, I think he took over for Christian Bure. I forget how to say his name. And Willy Wonka, because we had saw
oh,
Willy
wow.
Wonka with Christian. I think he took over for him when he left.
Nice.
Yeah, so he's around.
So
And
she's
he was,
picking
I
up.
think he was also in, I'm sorry, the Stepford Wives remake. I
He
think he was in that
was.
too.
Yes. He was half of the gay couple.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I remember that.
Yep.
The one with Nicole Kidman. And I did love that version. Some people don't.
It was good. It was good.
It's a
I
humorous
liked
look.
it.
I like those humorous remakes. So anyway,
But
we
come
meet
on,
George
back
for the
to Brie.
first time. He's at the
Yep.
pharmacy. He knows Brie personally. He says, "Hello, Mrs. Vandekamp." She says, "Hello, George," and everything. She's there for his her husband's medicine, Rex's medicine. He has pericarditis, and basically, he's George says he's going to need a lot of care. And somehow, I don't know how it happens, but I think George. She asked George to go out to dinner with her. Go to dinner with me because he's always nice. George is a very sweet guy, and from his first appearance. So we asked her to dinner and everything, and she says, "Wait," or he says, "Wait, but you're married." She says, "Well, Rex and I are separated, so it'll be okay." So you fast forward to them going to dinner, and it's Brie comes in from her house. She's all dolled up. She looks like a late 1950s housewife, little beehive wig, maybe early 60s, red dress, pearls. She looks beautiful, stunning. She comes down, and Rex says, "Where are you going?" She says, "I have a date." George comes in. He brings her flowers. She says they're exquisite. And then right away, she happens to know that it's compost and eggshells because she's a big gardener. He says, "Yes." So she goes up for a moment. And I've known before she went up, there was a comment made about, "I didn't realize your husband was still here, Rex." And she says, "Yes, his mistress refuses to care for him." She sort of, Brie is big with the jabs.
Hmm.
So it's a little bit
We
awkward.
now we know that she's just doing this to piss Rex off. Like I don't really think she's into George
No,
like that.
it
She's just
doesn't appear. You don't quite know yet. That sort
right.
of plays out. But George and Rex sort of converse because Brie has to go put the flowers in water. George laughs and Rex laughs and says, "You don't have to call me Dr. Vandekamp. Call me Rex. You're dating my wife."
Yeah.
So we go forward to, let me see what other scene she's in. Brie and George. They come back from, I guess, running errands and getting things. Um, they pull up in the car and everything, and he is. Oh no, I'm so sorry. I'm mistaken this. They're in the park for this one,
The first date.
the
Yeah.
first date. I think this was the park. Yes, they went to the park. I'm forgetting what happened with this one. They pull up in the car, and he goes to kiss her. She said he has a lovely time, whatever. I think she goes to kiss him, and Andrew walks up to the car. Andrew gets upset. What are you doing with my mother?
Hmm.
And he says, Are you on a date with this guy? She says, yes, your father and I are separated. Andrew gives his mother a lot of attitude. He gets really upset. They're not separated. She's a liar. He says to watch out for her to George.
Yeah.
And she gets out of the car, and that scene ends. Then we go to. Is it for her? That may be it for her.
I thought Brie and Andrew had like a good moment at the end. No, in this one.
They may have. Oh no, I'm so sorry. Um, this is a different. Hmm. This is another scene. So, Bree and Andrew are in the yard somewhere, and she says, "What are you doing?" She says, "I'm packing up your father's things for when he moves out. He's not going to be here forever." And Andrew says, "Dad told me the truth. Mom, Dad told me the truth." And then
Oh,
Bree
right.
says, "I'm glad he did." He says, "Dad's a jerk. He's horrible." She defends him, and she basically says, "Andrew, don't talk about that way with your father. I may not love him, but he will always be your father."
Yeah.
So, and she says, "He gave me the best 18 years of my life. Respect him." So
Yeah, that's
she
how
puts
it
her arm
ended.
around Andrew. Andrew puts her arm around her. They start to walk up to the house. You see Rex in the garden. He's under like I guess like a pagoda with not pagoda, an arbor with some wisteria growing on it. It's wisteria lane. It's wisteria, maybe it's lilac, who knows? But he's there
Right.
in the garden. They don't see him. He hears it all. He notices it. So they walk in their house, and I believe that's their end scene. I don't think they have another
Yeah, I
scene
think that
that's
is. So Gabby and her lawyer are talking. She's running out of money. Her maid's like, you should sell your jewelry. It's ugly anyway. You don't need that. She's still looking, and she tells the lawyer that she's still looking for the passport, even though we all know that she burned it. Um, Gabby shows her portfolio to like some agency, like to get jobs or whatever. He's like, we have an automobile job. We got a job where you can dress up, like I guess like for a Comic-Con type thing. Um, she's like pooping on it. She's like, no, no, none of the, none. I'm like, look at me. She's like, I'm like, I'm worth like millions. He's like, yeah, sorry, girl. 300 bucks for the day, I think she's gonna get for something. And so Gabby ends up taking the job. She models for a car, like at a mall that's getting trying to get people to buy this car. She sees Tom and Lynette, and she tries to hide from them, and she gets stuck. Her dress gets stuck to that, like a turntable thing. So it's like pulling her around as like Tom and Lynette get down. So she ends up bumping into them. It's like, oh shit. They're like, oh, what are you doing here? She's like, oh, I'm just shopping. And she like, didn't she pull that weird woman next to her?
She
She's like,
does. The woman goes, "Oh, here, Gabby, I got your dress unstuck."
yeah.
I'm like, "Who's this?" And she goes, "Oh, it's my assistant, my shopping buddy." And she looks very butch. She looks like she has no idea what a model would wear.
Yeah, right.
Maybe she does. Who knows? But
So later on, Gabby's electric goes off. She calls Hartley, and who's the lawyer, and she says, I found the passport, which is like, you can see it's like charged. So I guess she didn't 100% burn it, thank God. Um, and ends with Gabby telling Carlos that, the passport was found. So he'll be getting out of jail. And you got Susan.
okay. So Carl suddenly appears at Susan's house and needs a signature. Mike is there, and she says, "Mike, meet my ex." He says, "Oh, the plumber." He sort of gives a smile and a smirk. And then she says, "What are you here for?" He says, "I need signature." They talk about Julie's birthday plans, where they're going downtown for like a karaoke night with her girlfriends. Um, the Carl admits he broke up with Brandy. He's a jerk anyway. Who cares?
Yeah. Oh
Um,
yeah. Richard Berge is back as Carl. Forgot.
yeah, so he feels sad for himself. Um, And basically, he says that she slept with another guy. And Susan sort of throws back in her face, well, you did the same thing, you know? It's sort of divine justice.
Hmm.
So he says he's sorry. Mike disappears for a second. He excuses himself, like, says, oh, I'm going to go look for that part for the sink, you know, because he called him a plumber. So he excuses himself. He says he's sorry, kind of begs her for forgiveness. And then he says how hard it's been. She hugs him, or he hugs her. And then it's a little bit awkward. And then Mike walks back in, and she feels bad for him. So she says, Carl, why don't you join us? Because he says he had nothing to do. Why don't you join us for Julie's birthday? So he says, oh, you're the best. And he hugs her again. And that's when Mike sees him hugging. And she's like, I'm sorry. She's like, call me, you know? It's just awkward because Susan, you want her to be happy, but she has all these awkward moments. It's like a tragedy. It's a train wreck
It is.
happening in every scene.
It is.
But
But it's
that's
funny.
Susan. She's a comic relief.
Yeah.
So
All
the
the
next
drama.
one to Susan. Susan and Mike, they're at hmm,
Just the bar.
I think they're the bar. They're kissing and everything. They're singing and everything for the birthday. And
Was Carl with them? Or did he
Carl
join?
shows up, but you see them kissing. The girls
Oh,
are all
right.
singing. They opens with the girls, Julie and her friend singing on stage. And then you see Mike and Susan kissing. It's a happy moment. And all of a sudden, Carl comes up and says hello. But he brings a special guest with him.
Oh, yeah.
He brings Edie Britt, who is Susan's arch nemesis on Wisteria Lane. And there's just so much tension there. And Edie does look nice. She's dressed nice for the occasion. Um, they basically talk a little bit about how Carl broke her heart. Edie goes to sing a song, and Edie ends up singing. I forget what song it was, but there's a bit in the song where she talks about her whoring days, and then she
Yeah.
ends the song. It's a lovely song, and then she
I don't think
suggests
that
that.
was her real voice. I don't think Nicolette
No,
Sheridan sang.
do you think it was either of their real voices, or
I think Susan, it sounded like it could have been Terry Hatcher, but I
it
don't
did
know if
sound like
Terry
it could be her
Hatcher.
voice?
It did, but I know the Nicolette Sheridan did not sound like it would be her.
So Mike kind of convinces her to sing. She chooses New York, New York, and in the middle of singing, she starts to throw little jabs at Carl,
So
and it
funny.
gets brutal.
Well, wait, well, what isn't this was after the Edie stuff, right? Doesn't
After
Edie say
Edie's
something to
song,
her? Yeah.
pardon me, and Edie had great
Or,
applause.
yeah, no, after Susan, or no, wait, Edie told Susan like some shit about Carl, didn't she? And it
Oh,
pissed her off.
that's what it was. They talked about.
Yeah,
She says, "Well, you were decent to me for the whatever 13 years or 12 years we were together, but you were
right.
loyal to me for those 13 years." And as they're drinking and singing, Edie says, "Well, there was that one time he wasn't." She said, "What do you mean that one time?" And well, we were at the party, and the next thing you know, he's touching me, and it went on and on. They gave each other a look. They don't say what
Hmm.
happened. You kind of know they slept together. Susan goes up, and she just looks drained. She looks pale. Doesn't look stunning anymore. She
Pissed.
goes up. She starts to sing New York, New York. Beautiful voice. But then in between the lyrics, she is ripping on Carl. She's singing, and all of a sudden, she's telling him how horrible he is, what a piece
Right.
of trash he is. And then eventually the music stops playing, the DJ stops, everyone just stares. It's like, no, continue, continue. So there's a scene later where I think Carl apologizes to Susan. He apologizes for everything he does, for how horribly he treated her, for everything he did. Um, he tries basically to get back with her, and the way he approached her sort of reminded me of how Stan in the Golden Girls approaches Dorothy in every episode.
Yeah.
Like, babe, we had a great thing going. Yeah, babe, like, let's get back. And she suddenly realizes he goes, I forget if he goes to kiss her or whatever it was, but he says he's sorry. And then she realizes she has not a feeling for him. It's over. She wanted to hear
Hmm.
him say sorry, but she
Yep.
has not a feeling, not an ounce of love for him still in her soul. So she goes, I'm so happy. And he's like, oh, I'm happy too. And he goes, no, 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 I'm not happy for you. I have no feelings for you. And she runs out the door and she runs across the street to Mike. And
Yep.
she goes to tell Mike, and poor Susan, because when she gets there, I think this is the scene where Mike's not alone, right?
No, he's getting arrested or something. Or the
No,
cops are there.
he's
Like,
not
no,
getting
the cops
arrested
are
yet.
just
That's a
No, the
future
cops are
episode.
looking around this house, right? Yeah.
This is where I think this was the scene where maybe I'm mistaken. The next episode.
No, the
I
cops were
think.
there at the house at the end.
Oh, the cops were there at the house and they were asking
Yeah,
questions, but I forgot they were asking. That was at the very end.
and she, I don't
Oh,
want to
she
give it away.
confesses her love, but they just had to ask some
Yeah.
questions.
Well, because remember, didn't he tell her he loved her, and
He
she
loves
could
her
have
in an
said it
earlier
back.
scene, and then yeah, and then she says, "I love you" back to him,
Yeah,
and
as
she
the
tells
cops
the
are there, and the cops are like, "Great."
yeah, and she's like, "You can write that down," and they're like,
Yeah.
"Yeah, we'll write it down."
Yeah, right.
So I think that's it with the Susan scene, Susan
Yeah.
Mike. But there is another Mike
So,
scene, right? I think this is
other.
where Mike also sees the one guy,
Oh.
right? He sees the guy that hired
Mm.
him.
Oh, does he talk? Yeah, I think he does talk to them in that. Yeah,
Yeah, going back and
I
forth.
think.
So he sees the guy who hires him, and basically the guy says like, I'm done. I don't need your help anymore. Um, he's like, you didn't help me. I wanted help with my daughter. I'm mistaking that scene
Yeah.
for the next one. Maybe in the next
No,
episode.
that guy was there. It might be, but as long as we cover it, it don't matter.
Yeah.
It's in one of these episodes.
I think that's basically it with their scene.
Yeah, you're still getting like little tidbits of what's happening with that, so we don't exactly know either. So Lynette and Tom are in bed. They're talking about they need a new water heater and stuff. Claire is like about to do her
Yeah.
laundry, and she's like, "Well, if I hurry up and like throw this robe in there, I can run naked upstairs and back to my room." That which was crazy because I'm like, any of those kids could have got up, like girlfriend. Like, really?
They could have, but have you ever done that in the middle of the night? Like I've done that when I'm home alone. I'll be doing laundry. I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna go up and shower. I will literally the last load of laundry. I will take the clothes I'm wearing, throw them in the washer, strip down, and run up the steps. And then sometimes I'm going through the front of my house, going, "Oh crap! I left the blinds open in the front of the house. My neighbors can see me." So I dart through the front of my house to go up the steps.
I mean, I used to, but like with an apartment building that when you share laundry, you really can't take a chance.
True, true. That is true.
Um, so Tom is about to go downstairs and like make coffee for the morning or whatever, for him and Lynette. And he bumps into Claire and she's heading upstairs. She's totally naked, and he's just like jaw drop, like, "Oh, hey." That's really kind of awkward. So now he gets horny and he heads back to Lynette and they bang. The next day, Claire tells Lynette like what happened. She's like, "Oh, Tom didn't tell you? Like he saw me news." She's like, "I was so embarrassed." Like, I mean, Claire's just a nice girl. Like
She is.
she didn't think anything of it. But Lynette's like, and she said like, "What time was this around?" And it was exactly the time that he was going downstairs. And she's like, She seems a little concerned. So Lynette is talking to Tom. I think she brings up a bunch of different women, and then she brings up Claire. He's like, "So what do you think of Claire? Do you think she's attractive?" Um, she's basically worried because he didn't say anything to her. It's like before, when you had crushes on people, you would tell me about it, and we'd laugh it off. Like be like, "Oh, I like that girl," like. But this one he didn't, so she's concerned. Like, why would you not tell me? Like something like that. Um, and she said something about like lust in his heart or something. Uh, he he says that she's his only one, which I thought was really sweet. But we find out later that that might not be 100% true.
Yeah, right.
Um, so Claire's cleaning the table later on at the house, and
Mm.
Lynette catches Tom while looking at her boobies, just rubbing them away.
Well, yeah, she's rubbing
Uh,
and she's like cleaning the table like this, just up and
hmm.
down. And I feel bad because Lynette notices it before Tom does. And then when
Yep.
she sees it, she looks at Tom and she catches Tom staring right in the direction and just smiling.
And then Tom's like, "We need to make some changes, Claire."
Mm.
Basically, we know she's getting fired. And we see Lynette is looking for an ugly nanny now.
Yeah.
And that's how that ends. And there is another scene too. Which led to um the Mrs. Huber finding. Paul goes to the woods. He digs up Martha and he takes her jewelry and plants it at Mike's house, which is also what I meant
Yeah, I
to.
think it's a bracelet and a ring he takes off of her.
Yeah. Um, and then later the dog digs up Mrs. Huber. I don't know if he wanted her to be found because maybe he didn't bury her, or maybe because it was just loose dirt. So she ended up getting dug up.
Well, I think because they did this episode also had a search party when Felicia came. Edie Britt was trying to organize a search party. I know Edie
Yeah.
gave Felicia Tillman, I think is her name. She gave
Yeah.
her keys to the house because she did the wellness check with the cops, and when they broke not broke in, they broke down the front door to do a wellness check, and she wasn't there. They also found her missing car. That's when the police got the keys from inside the house and gave them to Edie because she's her best friend.
Yeah.
And it's really a shame because they showed that earlier in the episode. Edie, they talk about how Edie had no friends. And Mrs.
Yeah.
Huber was the first person with Siri Lane that came out to her, offered her food right away, but was brutally honest the entire time. She commented on the clothes she wore, her taste in men, her makeup, her promiscuity. But Mrs. Huber was the
Yeah.
only one who was honest ever to Edie, even
Yeah.
though she was
And they were
cruel.
friends because of it. Yep.
And they were friends. And that's what Edie was like. She's the only one who was, even though she was unkind, she was also kind too. She still treated her
Yeah.
with kindness, but she told her everything she needed to hear. And that's kind of why, I don't know, that's kind of why all that happened. You sort of feel bad for Edie during this. She lost her only friend.
Right. So episode 12, Every Day a Little Death. Um, let's see, starts with oh, I guess should I talk about the Martha stuff first? Oh yeah, it started out with Martha. So Martha always dreamed about something exciting would happen to her in life. The cops are at Mrs. Huber in the woods because they were, I guess investigating it, whatever. And we see like a cop says, "Oh, like you're gonna be famous. You're gonna be on like every newspaper." And this that they saw that the cop that day saw the corpse smiling, which was pretty funny. Felicia thanks the people and tells them all about Martha's violent death. Um, she goes on and she's like, there's no signs that she was molested at least, but everything else, was pretty much a nightmare. Just trying to make it an uncomfortable situation for the flock of people around because everybody
Yeah,
wants to know your business. Except me, I stay out of grown people's business. I wouldn't be there.
you do. You stay on a step
Um,
at work. You're good.
she mentions an estate sale, an estate sale, and says no personal checks. I guess she just wants cash.
Yeah,
Um, Edie comes over for the girls' poker night. Um, they don't really invite her to stay or anything. Um, she says that she needs someone. She's going to go scatter the ashes of Mrs. Huber, where her husband proposed in like some lake or whatever. And everyone basically gives an excuse not to go. And Susan even gave like a poor one. She's like, at least your friends can lie. Like you can't.
yeah.
Um, I
She
do
just
feel
says I'm
bad for
busy.
Edie. I'm like, why doesn't anybody like Edie? I mean, well, I guess she can be a bitch sometimes, whatever.
Yeah,
I don't know. I like Edie, so I have like a soft spot for her. And that's it for that stuff. And you can go with Susan.
with Susan. Okay. So let's talk about how Susan. Let me get to Susan's story. Was this episode?
Yeah.
Susan went to Mike's. Edie asked Mike to do some plumbing. Basically, Susan goes over to Mike's and she sees Edie's already at Mike's, and she says, "Oh, I'm hiring Mike as a plumber." And she says basically the insurance is coming through, building a whole new house, and she says something about how he's good with plumbing, and she said she'll ride him for a few months, and it's a little raunchy. The girls talk. And basically, he
Hmm.
says, "Oh, he can go the distance. Trust me." And she goes, "Oh, I believe he can." And the girls
Yeah,
go back and
Susan
forth,
did
but it's
say
like
that.
jabs at each other, and it's
Yeah,
weird. Um,
because Susan is currently riding him, and
yes,
Edie has
Susan
not
is
ridden
riding
him
him.
yet.
She loves him. He loves her.
Exactly.
Um, so Edie gets a call from Felicia. This is when I think she's with Mike,
Yeah, about Mrs.
and
Huber
they say
needing
they
help.
found Martha because Susan, I think, leaves this point. They found Martha. And that starts a chain reaction of phone calls.
Yeah.
Everyone ends up finding out eventually, but we'll go on with Susan and Mike's story. Actually, there's not a lot in the beginning. Susan offers Felicia help. She goes to her house, which is Martha's house, basically. She offers her help,
Hmm.
and she says, "I'm so sorry for what happened." He says, "No, you're not." And she says, I was here. I was happy I found her journals. And she had a lot of insight in her journals, and she wrote about everybody and everything, including
Hmm.
everyone else in Wisteria Lane. And she says there's some really interesting details in there. And the police want to read her journals, but I need to read them first before I give them to the police because there might be some family secrets, some skeletons in the closet, if you will. So
Susan
Susan
looks
panics,
concerned.
and Susan's like, crap, because Mrs. Hoover tried to bribe her before about burning Edie's house down. So she goes home and she talks to Julie. You see them in the kitchen together. She's all worried. She said, I'm sure I'm in the journal, the measuring cup, the fire, everything else. She goes, Mom, you need to come clean. Just go talk to Edie. Come clean. Like beg for her forgiveness. Grovel. Do anything you can. You need to suck up to Edie Britt.
Hmm.
So I'm going to skip that. I'm going to go back to it. Edie and Susan. Um, Susan walks over to Edie. It's a construction site in Wisteria Lane. You see dirt. You see Susan or Edie with a hard hat. She talks about, hey, look, there's some positives to this. You get to build your dream home. And you think this is where Susan's going to confess. And she goes, I can't replace everything. I lost all my furniture, all my belongings, all my photos, all my memories. So Susan's starting to feel really bad for Edie at this point. And she wants to see how she's holding up. And then Susan feels really guilty and she offers to go with Edie to the lake to scatter Martha Hoover's ashes.
Hmm.
And she's like, why would you do that? She said, I want to. I want to do it with you, So you think, okay, Susan's a good person. She's going to do this. But is she? You know what I mean? Like you said, you feel bad for Edie.
Yeah.
We go forward to Edie and Susan. They're on the side of a road, and Edie was driving, and the tire blew out. Susan is changing the tire, and you think, crap, Susan is kissing ass so bad.
Yep.
He says, were you a cheerleader in high school? And she goes, yeah, I was. She goes, not me. I was one of the outcasts. I was with the geeks and the nobodies that no one wanted to talk to. You all ignored me in
Yeah.
high school. And she goes, well, we're not in high school. She goes, but we are. And she sort of says how no one invites her to do anything. She's still the outcast. No matter how hard she tries, Edie's always the outcast.
Yeah.
And Susan starts to feel bad. And she says, no, no, no. Come with us. I want you to be part of things. I'm doing this out of the kindness of my heart. Then you fast forwarded to Susan and Edie, and they're on the lake. It looks like a picturesque lake. But I looked at
I
that water earlier
forgot.
today. We watched the episode. It is green. That water is green. And I'm like, was it green screen? Were they really on the lake? Like, where was it?
I
There's
forgot
pine trees
about
in the
what
background.
happened at the lake. I totally forgot. I was like,
Yeah,
oh,
I know. That was a brutal scene. So,
it was.
Susan she's even rowing the rowboat. And Edie's just holding the box of ashes.
She's doing
So they're going
everything.
back and forth, back and forth. And then Edie says, why did you come? She said, no, I really wanted to come. I really want to be there for you. And Edie goes on a little bit more about being the outcast. She said, no, I want to be here for you. I'm sorry this happened. And Edie says, and she starts to cry a little bit. She says, I'm so grateful. And she said, I know you miss Mrs. Huber. She goes, no, I'm grateful to you. You're being so kind to me. Everyone else stepped aside and you were there for me. And she goes on and on and on. And there's this tender moment. And she says, you're so good. And she says, and I've been such a bitch to you in the past. I've hurt you in many ways. And Susan goes, Edie, I'm not good. I'm not good. And this is where Susan confesses to Edie. Edie just sits there. And Susan goes, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. It was me. I burned down your house. I thought you were sleeping with Mike. I went over to see if you were sleeping with Mike. I had a measuring cup. I accidentally knocked over a candle and I panicked and I left the measuring cup and I burned her house down. And Edie's face was just like, oh my God, it just drained. Next thing you know, Edie takes the box, she opens it. You think she's gonna dump the ashes? No. She throws them all over Susan. Susan is caked in Mrs. Huber. Like Martha Huber is
Mhm.
all over her face, her body, everywhere. Her hair,
Brutal.
her eyes, her mouth. It's nasty. So
I
she begged her for
seriously,
forgiveness, begged her
I
for
was
forgiveness.
seriously like shocked because I totally forgot, and I was just like,
Yeah.
"Holy shit! I totally forgot that. I didn't even think. I don't know.
I would die if
So
someone did
funny.
that to me. Would.
Seriously,
Oh my
right?
God.
Oh my
Like, what do you
God.
do?
That happens in sitcoms a lot too. Like I think I want to say there was like a Give Me a Break episode or something, and Nell had knocked the something like the ashes on the floor and then like vacuumed them up or
Yeah.
something. Like it's been
I think
done
in
before, but
Married with Children,
never thrown on somebody though like
yeah.
that, as
Married
far as
with
I've
Children, I
seen.
think they end up barbecuing with ashes. They try to replace her dad's ashes,
Yeah,
but
I
and they
remember
gather
that.
ashes from everyone's fireplace throughout the neighborhood. But anyway, Susan looks shocked and she's trying to apologize. Please forgive me. Please forgive me. And Edie just says, row me back now. Like, row me back to shore.
Yeah,
So I go forward to Edie and Susan. Their storyline was funny. I felt sad. I
yeah.
felt for both of them in the scene. She says, please talk to me. She says, I know I caused you a lot of pain. She says, I'm still covered in Mrs. Hooper's ashes. Please forgive me. Please forgive me. Please don't go to the police. And she said, you know what? Burn my house down. She says, I'm so racked with guilt. I can't go on like this anymore.
Yeah,
So
and she'll do
basically,
anything to make it up.
Edie says, let's put that to the test. And
Yeah.
eventually says, I'm not going to tell the police. I'm not going to tell anybody. And I'm not going to tell insurance because it's just going to delay them paying for my house. So Susan thanks her. She thanks her and everything. And she says, from now on, I just want you to do something for me. Include me once in a while. Invite me. I said, I may not go. Maybe I will. Maybe I won't. Just invite me. She goes, okay, great. We have poker every Tuesday. It's at this time at Lynette's house. It's a potluck. And Edie goes, I'm not bringing anything. And I kind of don't blame Edie. If I was Edie, I'd say, you're making something for me. But we all know Susan can't cook.
And Susan's like, you don't have to.
Yeah, she's
I'll do
kissing fun.
whatever you
Like,
want.
she's like, thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
So she says, I need to go in and shower now. I need to get Mrs. Huber off of me. And she goes, Edie says, this is the best part. I can't stand the thought of Mrs. Huber ending up in the sewer. Martha ending up in the sewer. I think what we should do is we should hose you off right here on the grass. This way she can look out over her house and she can watch everyone with Syria Lane. And
No.
Susan's like, I don't think that's a good idea. She's like, no, I think it is. So she stands there and poor Susan looks like, oh my God, you're going to hose her off and she's going to live forever on my property. So she hoses her off and she tells her, I think she makes her step out more so everyone can see, but she just
Yeah.
hoses her down.
So
And you're like,
funny.
holy crap. And I think
I think
that's it
that's
for
it.
their scene, pretty
Yeah.
much.
So Lynette goes to a yoga class.
Oh,
The daycare for the yoga class is full, and you know my big pet peeve at work. So she starts writing under the line
oh
of,
yes, yes.
of something, and she's like, miss, you can't do that.
Just scribble on the wall.
It's yeah, it's full. And she's like, she's like, but I just got here, like, whatever. Um, so the lady says, next time I think her name's Lauren, you got to plan ahead. And then I think Lynette wishes a lot of children on her because then maybe she'll understand her pain.
I think
And
this is
then
where she mentions one of her kids is sick because she has a baby and
no,
she's like, does she say it there?
no, not yet, no. But she gets Susan's call about Mrs. Huber. Um, Lynette bribes her boys with gum so she can play cards with the girls, poker night with the girls. And then well, the boys, as they play, they put gum in Parker's hair. The twins, of
Poor
course,
Parker.
attack Parker. And she basically has to shave his head because he's got gum all in his hair and it's a hot disaster. Lynette gets to yoga. That girl Lauren sees Parker is bald and she thinks that he's sick. So she just is like, "Oh, we'll take care of it." She's like, "I'll take care of it. Don't worry about it. Go to your class. We'll watch them." And lets it go. She's like, "Cool." She gets to go to her yoga class. She didn't say anything. So, so then later on, Lynette comes back to yoga, and Lauren lets her right in. And then we have this woman that's Lauren's friend, a breast cancer survivor, wants to hug Parker because, she thinks he's dying, basically. So she hugs him and she's like, "Oh, it's gonna be okay," and all this stuff. And then he's like, "Mom, am I dying?" And she's like, "No, no, you're not dying." Um, and it basically comes out, the truth comes out, and I forget what
They all
she
stare at
said.
her. She never goes back to yoga again. They said the
Yeah.
door to meditation is not open to her anymore.
Oh no, Parker says something to her. He's like, I forget, like I got gum in my hair. Like he says the truth,
I
and
think she says it.
no,
She's like, no, no, you're not dying. I just shaved your head because you got gum in your hair.
no, she didn't say it.
I thought she did. He said it?
No, he said it because
Oh,
that's when everybody looked at it because I don't think she wanted to say it in front of all them people, and then he said it, and then she was like, "Oh," and then yeah, basically no more yoga for her, and then the end scene is Lynette is doing yoga at home, probably a YouTube video. That's all I got on her and Brie.
Bree. All right. So Bree's on her date with George, and she pulls up to the house. And one of the dates, I think they went out shopping. She says, "I would invite you in." He says, "I know, but Rex is still at home." You know, so she keeps looking at the house, and you're like, "Well, what's going on?" Her kids already know, Rex already knows, but she's being really loud in her conversation. Then when she gets out of the car, she also slams the trunk as she's getting packages out. She looks at the house again because she wants someone to notice that she's out on this date. You
Yep.
see a curtain move, and we think it's Rex that saw it, basically. But she said she had a lovely day. She wants to go out again with them. We should do this again. Um, then we go to Brie is on a picnic with George, and it's a very old-fashioned picnic. He has nice whatever spread, food, and everything. He says she comments on how it's a nice old-fashioned picnic, and he says, "Well, I'm an old-fashioned guy," and he seems really sweet. And then he says, "You've done so much for me," and he pulls out a gift. And I first thought, I'm like, please don't pull out a ring. You've only been on like 2 or 3 dates, whatever.
Yeah, right.
He pulls out a big box. I'm like, that's not a ring. Or if it is, it's a big box for a ring.
Right.
She opens it up and you just see elation in her face. He gave her a 9 millimeter Luger, I don't know, PD8, PO8. It's an antique gun, basically. And he
Yeah.
says, I know you're a member of the NRA. I just had to give it to you. My grandpa got it in the war from a prisoner. Basically, it sounds like it came from Germany during World War II or World War One, and she's elated. So you fast forward to a scene of Bree and George set up a shooting range, and it looks like on a farm. She's setting bottles up on like a post, and she goes, "Your first time shooting is something you will always remember." She says how great it's to get out of the house, or he says how great it's to get out of the house. You've gotten me out of my shell. He feels he's sort of confessing all these wonderful things that she's done for him.
Yeah.
And she goes and she shows him how to pull the trigger. She goes through the steps. She says what to do. She goes, does everything aimed. She goes through like 6 or 8 steps. Then she goes, okay, now you try. And she gets behind him and she's sort of guiding how he should do it. And he leans back to go kiss her. And she pulls back. And then when she pulls back and she has her hands over his, the fingers go down and he shoots his foot. And you hear him screaming. She's like, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry.
Yep.
Then you fast forward to him in the hospital scene and she's bringing him flowers.
This is funny.
And you find out he lost his middle toe. And she goes, the doctor said it shouldn't be a big deal. It won't throw your balance off. She tries to find a positive spin. He looks
That
so
cracked
sad.
me
And
up.
he says, I've always dreamed I would get to kiss a beautiful woman just like I almost did today, but instead I blew my toe off. And he basically said, like, Brie, why did you pull away when I tried to kiss you? We've been on so many dates. What's going on? And she basically says she's not ready. And she tells him along the lines of, you should never trust someone who just had their heart broken. And she
Yeah,
says, women who had their heart broken lie. And you sort of feel bad. She sounds like she still loves Rex. You're not sure what's going on with that. But George looks devastated.
yeah,
So go forward later on, and they're talking, and George says, "Well, Bree, why can't we just continue like we are? It could be hanging out, friends, whatever. I just want to be with you." And then she said, "But that's not fair." She said, "You're going to want more than just friendship, and I'm not going to be able to give it back to you. That's all I'm going to be able to give you is friendship. I won't be able to give you anything else." And he starts to flip out at her. You see him lash out, and he seems so sweet up until this point, and he's not sweet. He lashes out, he flips out, and you're like,
mhm,
wow, this guy's unstable. Like, it's better off Bree steps back.
yeah,
So she sort of sees him unhinged. And the next time we see, at the very, it's towards the end, we
yeah.
see
It's
one more scene with George, and they talk about how people are doing all these things and life has meaning. But for some people, their life has no meaning. And they show George watching TV. He's sitting with a TV tray, like a dinner table, whatever,
yeah,
sitting there. He's eating, he has his drink, his food. He hits the TV. And what is he watching? He is watching the surveillance footage from the pharmacy of him talking to Brie Van de Kamp.
creeper.
Exactly. Because you kind of got when he lashed out. It's like, all right, he might be a little unstable. You see this, and you're like, this guy's crazy. He's a creeper. He
Well,
just,
he's crushing on Brie, and
he is.
yeah,
It's a shame.
yep. So Gabby, Carlos gets home. Gabby greets him with champagne. He has an ankle monitor on, so he's under house arrest. He can't go 100 feet from his phone, apparently. Gabby's like, "What are you gonna do for work?" Like that's basically the whole reason she got him out, or said she found the passport because she was like, "Okay, you can go back to work, and I can go back to my lifestyle." But no. I do like that she's like, I've been doing like boat shows and shit. And he's like, I would buy 2 boats from you. I thought that was cute. And then they get, and then what's her name? Gabby gets the call about Mrs. Huber. Later on, Gabby gets home with like KFC. She's like, I didn't visit Juanita, the mother-in-law, whatever. Because I've been busy, I'm trying to work and make money. We have
10
nothing.
hours. I think she said she had a 10-hour day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And she's just like beat. She don't even want to eat. Um, and he's like, oh, he talks about like things changing. Did you change your mind? She's like, no, baby, no, I don't want a baby, no, none of that. And like, really, could you even think about having a baby now? Like, you have no money. So anyway, or it's frozen. His assets, I'm sure, are frozen.
Yeah.
Carlos says he's the man of the house, and she's like, oh yeah, you're the man of the house. Grabs his chicken, goes across the street. He can't leave. The little ankle thing starts beeping as he tries to go. And she sits there right on the curb and just eats his chicken. She's like, "This is good." Just like, oh, it's crisp and all this stuff. Teasing them, and she's like, "See, you can't even leave your house." I do. I forgot how much I love this show. It is
I love,
very funny.
I know. And I
I
love
love
after
them
that
all.
she goes in, after she makes that, you're not the man of the house. You can't even leave the house or whatever. I
Yeah,
love she takes this curly fry and she leans back like this, the curly
yeah,
fry, like dangles them like
yeah. This
exotics.
long curly fry.
Yeah.
Um, Gabby and Carlos talk. Basically thinks he'll like if he's like, "What are you gonna do like in the next 5 years if I go to jail?" Like, and she's just like, "Don't be silly," and just kind of ignores him and goes to work. And then he calls like the pharmacy or something, and we see, I guess he is tampering with her birth control pills. I don't know exactly what he's doing. Here, Jerry. Hi,
I
Jerry.
know. The kitty's coming. Here it comes. Here's my baby. Yeah.
Oh, the man. The little old man.
Yeah,
So yeah, so Carlos is tampering with Gabby's birth control pills. I'm guessing he's putting sugar pills in. That's what they
I
usually
think
do.
so. Just sort of make
Yeah,
her have a baby.
yeah. And we see at the end, Gabby and Carlos are about to have sex. So you're just like, it's
Yeah,
probably gonna happen. That's it for them. This was the episode where Mike met up with that dude.
yes. So I'll go into that. So Mike comes home from his house and it's a little bit disheveled. And I thought this is where Paul had planted the ring, Mrs. Huber's ring, and the bracelet in his house. I thought, oh, the police found it. No, it was the guy who hired him. He basically finds a voicemail. His house is totally rooted through, and he picks up the phone. It's a voicemail. Or I think maybe he called the guy, whatever it was voicemail, but it said, I basically don't need your help anymore. I took my money back. I'm done with you. You didn't provide any results. You didn't find anything on. I'm moving on with my life. So that scene ends. Mike goes to meet up with the guy. He meets him in his house, and this guy has a big, beautiful house. And basically says, I'm done with you. You didn't do anything. You didn't find any information. He said, I need more time. I need more time. And he goes, look, I don't have enough time. My time is almost up. I have a tumor. It's pressing on my brain. This guy that hired him.
Uh,
And he says, I wanted to find out what happened to my daughter. And he didn't say Dana. He said Deidre.
Deidre. Yep.
Deidre instead of Dana. So I wanted to find out what happened to my daughter Deidre before I die.
So apparently Mike was with Deidre. So I guess they were either married, I'm assuming married.
Yeah.
And then Kendra is Deidre's sister, the
Yes.
lady from whatever episode that was. And then this guy, I still don't know if we got his name. I didn't get his name. I should just look his name up.
Yeah. I don't think I've ever heard his name. You've heard the
Yeah, I don't
sister's
think they
name.
said his name. Yeah.
So they go later on. Mike talks to him and says, look, I still want to do this, everything else. I still want to try to help. And he says, okay, I trust you to take care of it. He said, you've already killed once. And they're like, what? So Mike
You
killed
already killed
somebody. Who did he kill? We
for
don't know.
Deidre.
That's up to next time. So
Remember he said
eventually,
you already killed once for her.
oh, that's
So
it.
you'd
Yeah.
probably do it again. So
Yeah.
he killed once for so yeah, so you're now the mystery is like thickening and you're just like, what's going on?
I
It was
know
a
it's
really
such a
good
shame because we're
recap.
finding more about him. I still like Mike, but there's that bad part to him that we're finding out.
Yeah. Well, that's the whole reason we watch these things for character flaws. I mean,
Yeah.
everybody's flawed. And as we can see with all five of these women, the
I
fact
know,
they're
but
all a
we
mess.
don't have any flaws in our glass houses. Not at
Of
all.
course not. Never.
Never.
Um, so yeah, that's all we got for this one. Let me make sure we covered everything. I'm pretty sure we did. All right. You got anything else to say about these episodes?
Um, Not
We're
really. I
halfway through
do
the
like how a
season.
lot of the scenes, like I said, the episodes always start off with a theme and they always finish with a theme.
Yeah.
Um, there's the past one's about the Bible, forgiveness, one's about guilt,
Hmm.
and there's one's about life having meaning. And in this one, they sort of, they all talk about it, like Mrs. Hoover, when they found her at the beginning and she was dead, and her life finally came to something after she died. And they talk about,
Yeah.
at the end, they talk about how life has no meaning basically for George. They said her life finally had meaning after she died, and his life basically is unworthy, is what they say. But I
Right.
like how they always tie in the beginning and the end of each episode, with whatever theme it is.
Yeah, it's cool.
Yeah,
Yeah, but we're mid-season now. I think there's 12 left. I think they have a 24 season. I'm not
but
100%
yeah,
sure.
they were long seasons. They don't make them like this though.
No, not anymore. Now it's
Yeah,
like 8 episodes if you're
I
lucky.
know, right? The age of
I
Netflix and Amazon.
Yeah. Thanks for joining us this time on Queers and Soaps. Thanks to our Patreon subscribers. We love you. Thank you to our regular subscribers. If you become a Patreon subscriber, because you won't see this otherwise. And have a good night, everyone. Subscribe, like, and comment. Let us know what you like about Desperate Housewives. Did you watch? I watched the whole run, original airing when it originally aired, from season 1 to season 8. Um, Have a good one, everyone. Bye.
Bye.